What is your never meet your hero's story? Actually, the opposite. I met Gordon Ramsay one time, and he was actually extremely kind. Definitely not what TV depicts him as. I've never met anyone that was an idol of mine that I had a bad experience with. However, my best friend growing up had his go so bad he ended what was nearly 20 years of fandom right then and there. He worked for one of the big shoe stores and had won a contest to go to the All-Star festivities for the NBA. He met a lot of current and former player and coaches and had a blast. Until he met Michael Jordan. Being a sneakerhead, my friend owned originals or re-releases of every shoe Jordan ever had up until that point. It was something like 30 shoes if you counted the different colorways. Posters, jerseys, trading cards, memorabilia of all types adorned a room at his apartment. He sees Jordan and decides to just kind of hang out until he is done talking and just get a quick meet and greet. No photo, no autograph, just to say hey. Jordan ends his conversation and my friend steps up near him and Jordan basically asks him who the duck he is, what he wants, and acts like an asshole. My friend just tells him that he was a big fan and it was great to finally meet him. Jordan basically says, yeah, whatever, and walks away. He got home from the trip and started selling off his collection of shoes and all things Jordan. He had heard the stories and assumed they were just overblown or didn't happen. Nope. Jordan is a cock in real life. Traveled 3 hours with a few friends of mine to watch an independent author, 36M, on his speaking tour when we were 14. He'd just released a book about his sex addiction, but his other books were just about his life and I loved him. When he found out we'd traveled so far, he started asking about how we got there and I told him my sister, 34, drove us. I tried to tell him that he inspired me and I was so happy to meet him. All he did was ask if my sister was hot. Told him she was in a long-term committed relationship and all he could say was I don't mind. Discover dude was just gross and never bought another of his books. I was told that as a kid I met Ryan Reynolds on the street once with my parents and he tried talking to me and I told him to go away. He's now one of my favorite actors. I realized that celebrities were normal ass people when I saw Steve Buscemi drop salad in his lap in a Burger King near Bob Hope Airport. Not me, but my 4-year-old daughter. She loves mailmen. She insists that she really wants to be one when she grows up. She's even planning to be a mailman for Halloween. She stops every mailman she sees to shower them with questions, and most have been kind and patient with this weird kid stopping them to ask questions. Until 2 days ago, when one told her to go away. She's been deflated for the whole 2 days. Tried to talk to Bill Nye at the USA Science and Engineering Festival when I was in middle school and he was a total asshole to both me and his 2 assistants. Rolled his eyes at me, was very snarky when I asked for an autograph and tried to tell him that he was the reason I had decided to apply to a science magnet high school. I was totally shocked and it was all I could do to hold in my tears until I turned away. Edit. It was the USA Science and Engineering Festival, not the National Book Festival, though both are awesome. When my friends and I were like 17-18, we went to see an X Factor taping recording when Demi Lovato, Disney star who was a judge on the show, was pulling out of the studio driveway and my friend just said, OMG, I love you so much. You saved my life, and she was so angry and just said get the duck away from me in the itchiest manner ever and drove off. She is bipolar but he still never liked her after that and was so heartbroken. I was 15 and at Warped Tour and met one of my favorite band members. He wasn't an asshole or anything, but he wasn't what I thought he would be. I had built him up in my head, but he was just a normal person who was tired and sweaty from the long day, and then I kind of realized that all my heroes are just normal people. I grew up with a poster of Cameron Diaz on my wall. Always thought she was the dopest. Then I met her and she was rude, stuck up, and made me get out of an elevator I was already in so she could ride it up alone. We were going to the same event. She later didn't acknowledge the elevator ride when we were introduced by a mutual friend. Made me think she's always like that. She may be hot but I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole anymore. My mate is a huge Batman fan and was dragged along to see Val Kilmer at one of his candid tours. Val proceeded to be a huge D while my mate was trying to ask a question. I keep hearing he's awfully rude towards his fans, but now I have a first-hand account to confirm. In high school I really loved Ender's Game. One summer I went to a writing workshop taught by Orson Scott Card. He spent the first 20-30 minutes talking about how immoral homosexuality is. Of course now I know he's a nut, but young me didn't. I ran into my favorite comedian once when eating with my family at a Chinese restaurant. I quoted one of my favorite lines to him: "The fun is just beginning." He yelled and cursed at me right in front of my parents. It was very embarrassing. He then had the nerve to ask if I wanted a picture. Never watched his routines again. And I guess I will never get the chance now. Not so much a meet my hero story, but write an essay praising someone who inspired me, and would then go on to do some bad things. Story. Grade 6 I wrote an essay about Jeff Gordon. This was during my professional motorsport phase. He would eventually go on to cheat on his wife. Grade 8 I wrote an essay about Kobe Bryant. This was during my basketball phase. He went on to get charged with rape. In post-secondary, during my inspiration of the differently abled persons phase, I included a profile of Oscar Pistorius in a project on para-athletes. He went on to murder his girlfriend. I've stopped writing essays about public figures who inspire me. I met Mickey Mouse at Disney World when I was around 6 years old. He just took a picture and signed my autograph book without even saying a word. He was a lot bigger in person than in the cartoons, though. Almost seemed about the size of a human adult. In college, a friend of mine used to draw comics on the side. Because of this, he always used to get a table whenever there was a comic convention in town. They were usually in the back of the hall, but still, he would say we were his assistants and get us in for free. One year, his table was in the far corner, by the door that convention guests would use to enter and leave the main hall. This year, the big guest was Walter Koenig, Chekhov from Star Trek. As he was getting ready to enter the main hall for his candor section, he stood by my friend's table, waiting to be announced. We tried to say hello, and my friend told him how much Star Trek meant to him when he was growing up, but Koenig just ignored him. Actually, he pretty much snubbed him, looked down his nose at us, etc. Anyway, Koenig does his candor and comes back through the door, trying to be inconspicuous. As he passes, my friend stands up and yells, "Hey, look, it's Chekhov." Whereupon the guy was immediately swarmed by every single fanboy in the room. He couldn't move, no matter how hard he tried to fight his way through the crowd. It was a good day. A former pastor. He was everyone's favorite and was always the center of attention. Great speaker and seemed all around compassionate for his people. I looked up to him and thought he was an all around decent being. I ended up getting involved in ministry and discovered this guy is more than likely an actual psychopath. The signs are all there, just everyone ignores it. Things ended up getting toxic and I honestly wish I could have seen him as the old pastor, not the secretly scary manipulative person underneath. Was told by others it was my own fault for getting hurt by his toxic behavior and I shouldn't put someone on a pedestal. Tried a new church years later and the new pastor admits some days he just doesn't want to come in and he struggles with his own issues. I respect him for keeping it real. One time I waited in the blistering cold after a concert to get an autograph from Eminem for little brother, Matthew. He's 6 years old. I love Kiss. But once I saw the Gene Simmons 6 tape, I couldn't see him the same way after that. I still love their songs and shows, but then I have flashbacks from that tape and I want to clean my eyes with a toothbrush. I met and worked alongside Betty White several years ago for a work thing. She's everything I expected her to be and more. An angel of a woman with an admirable work ethic. She told me more than once she is grateful for her career at this point in her life. I didn't meet them, but when I was 15-16 I was obsessed with New Kids on the Block. In love, and miraculously they came to my hometown in Mexico. I got a ticket, proceeded to cry on the shoulder of a random girl in front of me, and then, Donnie Ducking Wahlberg tried to get the Spanish speaking audience to sing along and we didn't because Spanish. So Donnie gets frustrated and yells at us, "Duck you." A lot of people didn't understand, so they're clapping and cheering, but I'm standing there dumbfounded and heartbroken. I stayed until the end of the concert, but once I got home I got rid of the NKOTB posters and stopped being a fan. Duck you, Donnie, you piece of it. Opposite answer, because of course it is. But D. Snidder. I was 19 and working at a hard rock cafe and he was judging some mid-level battle of the bands thing. I was raised on hair metal and Twisted Sister was a favorite of mine. Plus I'd never met anyone famous before. He made his small entourage stop so he could sign a napkin for me, shake my hand, and the best part was his first question. So how long have you been rocking? Since I was 13 and I've never stopped. Rock on, little lady. Very nice man. Very pleased to see enthusiasm. Great handshake and eye contact, which couldn't have been easy since he's easily a foot taller than I am. His daughter, on the other hand, was a damned bint, though. I barely got out the perfunctory welcome to the hard rock before she shoves up front and gets in my face with a snotty "Do you even know who this is?" Like how dare I impede the way of greatness in all my unwashed splendor. And of course Dopey me only stutters out, "Yeah, that's D. Snidder." So, Mr. Snidder, class act, seemed genuinely happy to pause for 5 minutes to talk with a young metal fan. Has one of the best opening lines. 10/10 would love to meet him again. Especially since his signed napkin got lost in my divorce. Whoever was with him riding coattails. I hope her bleach blonde hair never holds a proper curl for longer than 10 minutes and goes brassy. I never met him, but I am from the same town as him. Dan Aykroyd has been my hero since Ghostbusters Blues Brothers. I've always wanted to meet him until I met an ex-girlfriend that told me otherwise. She was at a book signing here and he and his entourage invited her and other women up to his hotel suite for an after party. He tried all night trying to get her and other women to get to sleep with him. There was full of drugs everywhere too. This hit me hard because his best friend John Belushi dead on drugs. He was mostly trying to get with her since she was very tall, but she wasn't interested and left after a while. Best part is that I was able to sleep with a woman that turned down my hero, lol. Since then I also found YouTube videos on how much of a D he is in real life. As a kid I looked up to Penn and Teller. I did little magic shows at kids' birthday parties and talent shows and whatever. As a 24-year-old I had the opportunity to have dinner with Penn Jillette at the Sundance Film Festival. He wasn't a D, but he was bigger than life. When I interrupted a libertarian rant of his to interject some progressive stance I had on the environment, he belittled my argument and went on holding court. Again, not a D move necessarily, it was a discussion about politics after all, but nonetheless the interaction knocked him off a pedestal for me. No longer a god but rather, just a guy. As an aside, Chevy Chase was also having dinner at that restaurant and from what I understand he is a D. I tried to get a look at him on a trip to the restroom and tripped into a potted plant while craning my neck. Good times. Not a bad story, just awkward. Got to meet Cole Urban at a con. He was friendly and all, but I was so nervous I could barely say a word. English not being my first language also didn't really help. Also had to wait a little bit in line because he just left for a quick bathroom break. So I just sorta stood there. He actually tried to make a bit of a conversation but I just giggled awkwardly. It's like my brain forgot every English phrase or word I ever learned. Damn insecurities. I went to the Candor panel in the afternoon and he was really funny and entertaining. So I think he's a cool guy overall. I was just too awkward for my own good colon. Not mine. But it's well known that Bill Nye is a major asshole. Whenever he's recognized he goes on a ducking warpath. IDK if this was really her or not. But when I was like 9 I had messaged Ariana Grande on Facebook back in like 2010 when she was on the show Victorious. I told I was big fan and she called me a stupid itch. It really hurt me and I stopped following her page after that. Lol. Well, if you suspect your heroes are superhuman, it's probably a good idea. If you just want confirmation that they are human, not a bad idea. I was a kid and a big fan of a local major league sports team. They were doing a charity softball game at a park near my home. So my father, also a fan, took me to watch. The beer was apparently flowing rather well in the dugout area, and one of the team's star players who was at shortstop let out a huge belch. I nearly died laughing. Have had a hard time putting celebrities in a glass bubble ever since. Misha Mansouraka. Bulb from Periphery. Went to a gig where Periphery were the support act, but I was going to see them really. So I went to the bar as soon as they were done, and the guys from Periphery minus Bulb were stood around having a drink and chatting to people. So I had a chat, had a drink and a few photos. Really nice guys. And was waiting to see him as well. He came out and was mid-conversation with someone, so I politely waited for him to finish and just said hi and asked for a photo, and he was just a bit douchy about it. Like we'd really inconvenienced him. Nothing major. He still had the photo with us, but he just rubbed me the wrong way a bit after the other guys being so cool. I meet Dave Chappell. Bigger a hole than it is shows. I just said hi, I'm from Canada and I like your show. He said duck Canada. Maybe he was having a bad day. Not exactly a hero, but I'm a huge fan of Twin Peaks, and I met Jeremy Lindham, who had a bit part in one episode of the 2017 series. He was at the Twin Peaks Fest. He seemed like a genuinely good dude at the time, and he was fun to talk to. Then a little while after the fest he beat his girlfriend with a baseball bat. Yeah. My best friend drives for a luxury taxi line and drove Ed Sheeran to his concert. Ed gets in my friend's car. My friend is greeting him. He doesn't even say hello back. My friend tells him few seconds later, "Oh hello, my name is. I am your driver today and I am sorry, but I just have to tell you I really enjoy your music and it's really an honor for me to drive you to your concert." Ed, the asshole he was, just looked at him and said "Oh ye whatever" and put his earphones on. Yeah, you can imagine. My best friend dosed like him since that moment. I saw Michael Jordan at a grocery store in Chicago a few years ago. I told him how cool it was to meet him in person, but I didn't want to be a douche and bother him and ask him for photos or anything. He said, "Oh, like you're doing now?" I was taken aback, and all I could say was "huh," but he kept cutting me off and going "huh, and closing his hand shut in front of my face. I walked away and continued with my shopping, and I heard him chuckle as I walked off. When I came to pay for my stuff up front, I saw him trying to walk out the doors with like 15 Milky Ways in his hands without paying. The girl at the counter was very nice about it and professional, and was like, "Sir, you need to pay for those first." At first he kept pretending to be tired and not hear her, but eventually turned back around and brought them to the counter. When she took one of the bars and started scanning it multiple times, he stopped her and told her to scan them each individually to prevent any electrical interference, and then turned around and winked at me. I don't even think that's a word. After she scanned each bar and put them in a bag and started to say the price, he kept interrupting her by yawning really loudly. I used to love science as a kid, and I'd watch a ton of Bill Nye the Science Guy. He was autographing stuff at the St. Louis Science Center. I think I was about 8 or 10 years old and super ducking excited to see him. My mom bought me a poster with dinosaurs on it that he could sign for me. Waited about 5 minutes in line to see a very bored, pissed off Bill Nye. Told him I really liked his show and that I want to be a paleontologist when I grow up. He literally said "yeah whatever kid" under his breath, and signed my poster, then loudly said "next." I wasn't too bothered about it tbh. But I remember my mom being like, "Huh, he was kind of an ass, wasn't he?" To be fair, he didn't just sign the poster. He also left a quick little note that said "follow your dreams or summit." I'll give Bill the benefit of the doubt on this one. I just think he was just bored and tired from signing stuff for little kids for hours straight. I would be too. I worked at a train park in Scottsdale, AZ back in high school and was in the front lobby when David Spade came in with his kid. This story is pretty great because he was upset that the cashier or anyone up front wasn't treating him in a "OMG David ducking Spade just walked into our establishment" kind of way. He even verbatim said "don't you know who I am?" and just seemed super petty. I just remember standing there internally laughing my ass off. It made me question what I thought about him. Getting upset attention grabbing in a kid's train park. Bonus story, same train park I was running the carousel one afternoon and an incognito John Heder took a ride by himself at like 3 PM. Confirmed it was him with the cashier afterwards. Still can't get over that either. I was in Philadelphia to see my favorite band at the time, Modern Baseball. Me and my girlfriend at the time were right next to the side stage entrance and one of the lead singers, Brendan Lukens walked past us into the crowd. On his way back I worked up the courage and said good luck out there tonight. He kinda just waved me off and weakly said thanks, didn't even look at me. Turns out the dude was going through Alert and pulled out of the rest of the tour a week later, so I ultimately did hold it against him. Great show though. Ingwie Malmsteen. I was working for a guitar company and at a trade show. I was walking upstairs at the event center when my colleagues and boss noticed Ingwie at the top of the stairs with two guards coming down. My boss, a 5'1" middle-aged Italian man, said "Yo, Ingwie," as we were about to pass him, and he stops in his tracks, tapped the shoulder of one of the guards and uttered "take care of him." I then watched my boss get thrown down the flight of stairs for acknowledging Ingwie's existence. I'm so embarrassed to say this, but when I was younger I loved the Nostalgia Critic. I flew out to Chicago from Philly to meet him at a convention. The photo I have shows no light in his eyes, and well, you all know what happened a year ago. On the upside, I made some good friends at the convention. I went back every year until college. I met Jenna Marbles, YouTuber, at VidCon several years ago. She wasn't really a hero of mine, but I enjoyed her videos, and I went with a friend who absolutely loved her. Anyway, the context is it was one of those night party events, and everyone was outside chatting in the gated area of a nice restaurant. She was chatting with someone while waiting in line to order a drink. So my friend I walked over and politely asked for a picture. She said sure, 1 minute, and then proceeded to leave us standing there awkwardly for 5 minutes and completely ignored us. Then she got her drink and walked away. Literally every other YouTuber I talked to was super friendly and happy to take a picture with their fans. She was the only one that was rude, and I just couldn't enjoy any of her videos after that. What's annoying is that oftentimes I see her mentioned on Reddit, and the comments are always OMG. She's so nice and friendly in person, just like in her videos 111.1. And I'm just like, nah, not really. Guess I'm still salty all these years later. Remember Gallagher, the old comedian? Boyfriend and I were so excited to hear that he was still alive, and this summer, got to see a show. Yeah, turns out the goofy dude with the giant couch from the 80s is now a homophobe, racist, etc big time. Literally used the letter N to describe black folks. Really crude anti-gay stuff too. Dude would also belittle everyone who left for a bathroom break, etc. in a really nasty way, encouraging audience to participate. Not good. 1989 National Cherry Festival. Batman was scheduled to make an appearance at the Milk Jug Boat Regatta. I was there with my wife and 2 young kids. Batman arrives via Chris Craft and leaps onto the dock. Crowd forms around him. I push my way through to get a photo of him with my kids. Just as I get near, he turns and gets ready to leap back into the boat. I yell out "Yo, Batman," and was super happy to see he stopped and turned around to pose for the photo. He absolutely reeked of weed and the black makeup around his bloodshot eyes was cracked and running from his sweat. Full stop. I used to be a huge Vic Mignogna fan. I went to a panel of his, and dear god did he act like a melodramatic, self-centered asshole. On day 0 of the con, he tried to hold a last-minute candor because of the minimal notice he also like confirmation it was happening at 5 when the panel is at 7, so very few people showed up. Vic started his panel with catty, underhanded comments about how itty we were for not going to the panel. He then pointed out people in the crowd and thanked them for coming and being true fans. After that at show, he spent the entire panel showing his Star Trek series. We were supposed to watch 2 or 3 episodes, with him supplying commentary during and after. We watched 6 episodes. No commentary, beyond pointing out other voice actors and how good he was in his role. The panel manager let him know he was running out of time, and Vic proceeded to quietly yell at him. In the last few minutes of the panel, a few more catty comments were said, and then he pointed out his favorite fan, who had made wristbands for the panel goers, which was actually really sweet of her. Suffice it to say, I no longer admire Vic. His voice acting is fairly good, but his personality is just terrible. Not my story, but my dad was once kicked out of a restaurant because John Travolta wanted to eat there and made them clear the entire place out in the middle of everyone else's meals.